Have you ever thought, is this just me when struggling to stay organized, start tasks, or manage time? For those of us over 50, these challenges might not be just aging. They could be ADHD hiding in plain sight for decades. I'm Jami Shapiro, host of Grandma Has ADHD, and I'm building a community where your experiences matter. Whether you're diagnosed, questioning, or simply curious, you're not alone. Our Facebook group is filled with vibrant, understanding people over 50 who share their stories, strategies, and yes, even their struggles, with plenty of laughter along the way. Ready to find your people? Join our growing Grandma Has ADHD Facebook community. Please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone, because ADHD doesn't have an age limit and neither does understanding yourself better. Together, we're changing the conversation about ADHD after 50. Come be part of the story. Hi, and welcome to Grandma Has ADHD. I am joined today by Christine. Is it Kotik or Kotik?
Kotik.
Kotik. She is a professionally certified coach. So that means she's done a lot of coaching to earn that designation. And I wanted to share what I read on her website because I really liked the way that she described herself and her practice. So it says, looking for an expert and trained ADHD coach who will help you overcome your ADHD? Look no further. Imagine yourself at the end of the day reviewing your to-do list, and every item is checked. First of all, that sounds like bliss. Does it seem far-fetched to imagine that you could identify the things you need to do, budget time for each of them, and one by one check them off your list? Yes, please. That may seem normal to most people, but not to those of us with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I don't even like to call it a disorder, but that's a whole other conversation. And she also has ADHD. We know what it's like to have our days derailed by the sight of a shiny object or a proverbial squirrel. We know what it's like to hear repeatedly that we have so much potential, and if only we would try harder. We know what it's like to disappoint over and over the people we love most. So, wow, what a strong introduction. So Christine, has been working with seniors who have ADHD or women later in life, because seniors are 65 and over. And they are trying to figure out their next phase and how ADHD makes that a challenge. So welcome so much to the podcast, Christine.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So I always like to start with your ADHD discovery, how you ended up discovering you had ADHD, then a little about, when you looked back at your childhood, and then, of course, how you got into coaching.
Sure. So my ADHD journey, I always call it a journey because I feel like that's what it was. I guess if I go back even farther, so kind of this is the childhood piece, I was someone who found myself very bright throughout my schooling, did well in school, was a very high achiever, people pleaser. If any of this is sounding familiar, it checks all the boxes. Didn't want to let people down. So worked super hard to be successful and was the valedictorian of my high school class.
Wow.
And so things were going really well until I got to college. And then I got to college, and because my mom, who I call her my prosthetic prefrontal cortex, my executive functioner, I got to college and I couldn't do school. I didn't know how to keep myself on time, how to motivate myself, how to turn things in, how to study, because I had never done that on my own before. So college was really a big challenge for me. But I didn't know why. I just thought something happened between graduating from high school and showing up in Cleveland, Ohio for college that, drank bad water. I don't know. Wasn't sure what it was, and struggled through college. I graduated and things were fine. I got my first job and things were fine. And things kind of kept going along being okay until they weren't. And then things were a big challenge for me. And so it just was that bumpy road. And I ended up going back to school as an adult after I had two of my four kids and got my teaching degree so I could teach. And when I got my first teaching job, it was at a school in Columbus for kids who learn differently. And that
Mhm.
meant dyslexia. We were all, as teachers, Wharton Gillingham trained. So the multimodal approach to teaching, very hands on. And most of my kids had ADHD. And so as I was learning about ADHD and going through some things with my own children, I was like, this sort of answers a lot of questions for me. Is
Mhm.
this something that adults can have? And of course, the answer was a big resounding yes. And yes, you have ADHD, Christine. So
Mhm.
I was in my 40s, I believe, when I
Mhm.
got diagnosed. And like I said, I was in the perfect, you hear about the perfect storm. Mine was actually a good perfect storm because I was in a school where we taught kids how they need to learn when they have ADHD. It was a safe space, a lot of hands on, a lot of understanding of that ADHD brain and what it needs and what's helpful and what's not. And so that helped me. And so I went to a conference, a CHAD conference in Baltimore one year and listened to an amazing ADHD coach talk about ADHD coaching. And I was like, oh, wow, this really lights all of my fires. I'm so excited to learn more. And so I really spent that fall learning a lot about ADHD coaching, went and took training courses in person in DC, gosh, that January, and left my teaching career behind and started my coaching business 10 years ago this month. So
Wow,
it's hard to believe it's been that long. So
that
that is my
congratulations.
long-winded answer to how I got here and kind of my ADHD journey.
Nice. Okay. Well, first of all, for those of you who are listening and you don't know the terminology CHAD, because I always like,
Yeah.
remember, we're bringing in a lot of people who are new to the ADHD
Yes, true.
conversation.
Yeah.
So CHAD is, I believe it's Children and Adults with ADHD. It's the largest nonprofit that's advocating for people who have ADHD. I know right now there's a lot of conversation around medications and accommodations. And so CHAD is out there really trying to help. So they co-sponsor the International ADHD Conference. I just wanted to sort of back into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Great.
I would love to hear, because one of the things that I know that people have enjoyed is hearing other people's stories when ADHD showed up for them in their childhood. Because again, it doesn't just appear. You just had a mother who was functioning as your Ritalin, or your executive functioning, as you said. Tell me a little bit about any of the ADHD traits that you maybe had as a child looking back.
Yeah. So looking back, my mom and I laugh about it now, but she would refer to me kind of as Pigpen, the Charlie Brown character, who would go from place to place, and my messes and my piles followed me all around. She could tell anywhere I'd been because I had left all the things there. You know, it was there, it stayed there. I had a chair in my room that she called my messy chair, and it would just grow and grow and grow till everything fell on the floor. So just that messiness, the disorganization of
Mhm.
being able to find my things and put my things away like I should. And I think the other place that it really came in for me was time blindness and then the procrastinating.
Mhm.
Those were the big things that showed up for me. She will tell stories of all throughout my childhood, elementary school, and even as a high school senior, like my ability to get work done on time was pretty much minimal. We'd be up at the last minute doing projects. And I feel like some of the things are the things that don't necessarily fit the diagnostic criteria, but are the kind of, I don't know, lived examples of things. But
Mhm.
when I thought of doing a project, I didn't pick the simplest project to do.
Mhm.
Like my brain was doing all the big things. And so
Mhm.
I had drawn up plans to create a farm. Everyone else created their diorama in a shoebox, but mine was like more in a moving box where I created a whole farm with sand and all this stuff, which was amazing. But we did it like 5 hours the
Yep.
night before it was due. And we had to then figure out, how do we get this big box from our garage into the car, into school, all of those things. So
Yeah.
I think those were the things. Also, girls with ADHD tend to be very fast talkers. And I think that you will hear as we talk today, I have not grown out of that one either, but
Me.
I think fast and talk fast. And that was something, even as a kid, that was me, just constantly telling stories, talking fast, doing those things.
I've had
So,
people ask me to slow down when I'm presenting. And in
yes.
case you are new to the podcast space, you can actually change the speed of your playback. So you might want to listen to this podcast. I'd never thought of that at 0.75 versus one, or I listen at 1.25 because I don't have the patience. I got to get through it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you mentioned time blindness, and I always try to take every podcast as its own freestanding. So, describe time blindness for someone who might be listening. I think we all know
Um,
procrastination, right? And
yeah.
fast talking and pig pen.
Yeah. So, time blindness, I feel like when I talk about this, I can come at it from different ways. But one of the things for time blindness is just the inability to really understand the passing of time. So, it can affect people in several ways. One of those is like, I have this project. I think it's going to take me an hour to do it. And so I'll budget an hour. Well, really, anybody with a neurotypical non ADHD brain could look at that same project and be like, Christine, that's like 3 hours of work. You're never going to get that done in an hour, right? So
Mhm.
now we're behind. We aren't getting things done. It's that inability to feel like the passing of time. So, one of my strengths is I love to learn. And so, as a teacher, I love to gather all my resources and gather resources and gather resources. But I could quickly get lost in gathering the resources and finding new things and finding fun things to share with my students. So I might have started that after I got the kids all to bed, and that I might have started that at 9 o'clock. The next thing I knew, it was 2:30 in the morning. And I felt like an hour had gone by. So, like, you just get involved in things and you don't feel that passing of time. And so it's just that inability to really understand time in the same way that a neurotypical brain does. I think it also is an example of like the now, like everything happens now or it's not now. So
Mhm.
if it's not right happening, it's not like we push it off and plan for it in other chunks of time. We just say, oh, it's not now, it's the other time. I saw a real funny clock that someone here in my building has, and it just has now, 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 now for all of the times.
Oh,
So it made me laugh when I saw that, because I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. Like, oh, yeah, it's now. So that's a very non academic way to
sure.
describe
I like
ways
that.
that time blindness shows up for
Yeah.
people.
I would imagine that most of our audience are not academics. I wanted to ask you a question. This is totally random, but it made me think of something, and I want to know if you can identify. So when I cook and I want to put it into the leftovers into a Tupperware or a leftover container, I can
Mhm.
never judge the size that Tupperware container is. I wonder if that has anything to do with the same time blindness. Just curious. Do you?
Oh, that is so funny. I don't think I have ever thought about that in that way, but I can tell you, my kids are always laughing because they're like, Mom, clearly that chili was not going to fit in that container. And then, of course, I have to like actually just try and squish the lid on so the chili's all, because it to
Now you
take
have a bigger mess than if
right?
you had.
Yes, to take the time to get another thing out and put it in. Yes. So I think, yeah, maybe the whole thing with time blindness and all that, I think it's maybe it's
Spatial.
like a estimation issue.
Mhm. Yeah, I had never
Yeah.
asked anybody that question, but when I do, it's funny because my company does packing and unpacking as part of the services that we provide with Move Manage, and I've
Mhm.
never been good at getting the boxes, putting things away, and so when I give a presentation, I always say that there are people who are just naturally inclined, and that
Yeah.
is not me.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I wanted go ahead.
The funny thing is though, like I am an expert trunk packer. right? Because
Mm.
I can see like how all this stuff, so I can do it with that, but it's like the food because I'm thinking about it, right? When I walk out to the car, I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to get 6 people's vacation stuff into the back of this trunk so we don't have to leave anything at home? So I think I've been priming my brain pump and thinking about it. The food, it's just like, oh, I got to put this away. And I don't have that same planning feature. So that's actually a super interesting question. Now I'm going to be thinking about that
Nice.
for a while.
I definitely the now and not now has been so huge, and actually, that's a big part of what I'm doing here. So part of it is educating people who are coming to the discovery that they have ADHD and they've had it their
Mhm,
whole lives. And our
mhm,
challenges, we're definitely going to get into that. What does ADHD look like for somebody 50 and over versus
mhm.
someone who's running a household? But the other reason that I am doing this is that I have noticed that a lot of people with ADHD, because we're impulsive spenders and we're living in the moment, that we're not thinking about retirement and what we're going to need as we're aging. And so that's another big part of, we all want to do way more than we possibly can, but it's like,
Right.
how do I ignore that? So I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on this podcast is that you specifically mentioned that you do work with seniors. And I wanted to kind of hear from your perspective, how do you think their daily lives are impacted with ADHD at this point? And how do you work with them for strategies and support?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to me, and that's why I loved the whole grandma has ADHD because over time I've worked with I couldn't count them, but many women and men that are like have hit retirement age. And that retirement transition really throws people for a loop with their ADHD. And I think it's working with a super wonderful lady right now. And that's her big frustration with herself because we tend to get hard on ourselves. But she had kids and she managed her kids just fine. And she had a job and she did all these things. And now, when she feels like she should be at the time of her life being able to be retired and her husband retired and they moved to a new city to be with her grandkids. And now all of a sudden I can't seem to have a plan. I can't get out of bed and get moving and do the things. And I bought plants and they're dying before I can get them planted because I just don't have that energy. And so I think to me, it's super interesting that it's like in those times of transition, what worked before and the methods we used, I think, to manage our ADHD, and we build
Mhm.
up to that. And now all of a sudden, we're retired. We're in this new phase, and our brains, they don't know what to do with that. And so they get caught up in some of the things that I see with my college students with ADHD who struggle of going from the structure of high school to a college setting where they have to manage their time. They have to build in the structure. They have to do all those things. And there's not an external force pushing on them for those things. And so
Mhm.
we have to build that in. And I think that for me is one of the biggest things of all the people that I've worked with is the biggest struggle is that all of a sudden, like the lack of structure makes
Mhm.
it really hard
Mhm.
to do the things they want to do.
Sure. Before we talk about some strategies, I would love to hear your theory on why you think it is that we get to this point in retirement where we can slow down and people with ADHD struggle more. And then if you don't say what I think, I'll share what I think.
Well, I mean, I think it's a couple things. One, I think that I'm going to put my fingers down. So I remember I want to say 3 things. One of those things is that I think, like I said, it's our people have kind of trained their brains to
Mhm.
do these specific things, to get up and go to work or get up and do work or get up and get the kids off to school. So you have these certain plans in place
Mhm.
and what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
What changes when you retire is that doesn't exist anymore. And
Mhm.
so that's one thing is it's a lack of structure and routine that is
Mhm.
given to you by a job or your family or kids. So
Mhm.
it's that. I
Sure.
think the second thing is that I think that we as Americans, I guess, have this vision of what retirement is. And it's
Mhm.
this glorious time to relax and to do all the things that we have always wanted to do. But then when it happens, like we have these, oh, I've got to do all of these things. And then we start kind of getting down on ourselves because, like, I can't do, well, what's wrong with me? And it just
Mhm.
turns into, like, a malaise, is that
Mhm.
right? Just and it's hard to get moving. So I think those are kind of the things, and then I think the other part of it is it's eh, some of that is natural, right? It's the aging process, and we're living longer now, we're doing things. So as we age, there are different physiological changes in our body and hormone changes. For women, those hormone changes start earlier, but that it just all starts compounding. So then you have all of these things
Mhm.
building up,
Mhm.
and it makes it hard.
Okay, so those were some different things, but I liked them. So I'm going to contribute two things that I think,
Yeah.
and I'm combined type, so that means I'm hyperactive and I'm inattentive. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I've learned about myself is the more I have to do, the more I get done. And
Right.
so when I've got a bunch of stuff coming at me, then because my dopamine is high and I'm just thinking it out. So that would be one theory behind it. The
Mhm.
other thing for me that I find, and I know this now to be so true, I discovered my own ADHD 10 years ago. And I'll look
Mhm.
at old posts from before I knew I had ADHD about I have my daughter home, it's just the two of us. I don't know what to do with her. Like I struggle with having to make a lot of decisions. And so I can't even imagine having an empty canvas of my day and then having to make a lot of decisions. So that's my thought behind that.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that, and I guess in my brain, I kinda lump that all into, like, that structure and that routine in a little bit, and it's the same, like, if I take a day off from working, I can spend all day just spinning my wheels, thinking and doing all the things. But if I don't have a plan, if I don't
Mhm.
have somewhere to be or something, then it's harder to do that. So when you go from that, I've lived this life of working, like you said, with all the things. Now I don't have any of that. And it's
Mhm.
harder because now you're spending more time thinking and all of that. I think something else that happens is that because it's really coming out more now that ADHD continues into adulthood and that there are things in aging that can make it harder. I think that probably in the past, there's been a lot of masking or a lot of chalking it up to, oh, I'm depressed right now, or wow, my anxiety. So I think that too, there's a lot more understanding that this is
Mhm.
a continuing lifelong issue for people. And so how can we best support people during this time? I think there's an emotional piece to it also, like the emotional dysregulation as we get older is harder. But now, like, people are downsizing, they're having to make decisions. Like you said, sometimes there's a lot of decisions to make, sometimes it feels like there's not enough. But I see people that are having to make decisions about, like, their stuff and what do I keep? And I'm moving from a four-bedroom house that I lived in with my family to a one-bedroom
Mhm.
independent senior living. What do I do with all of this stuff? And it feels hurtful and hard to let go of things. And so people bring it with them, and now they've got so I think that there's a lot.
Right. Okay. I have to interrupt you. And first of all,
Yes.
kudos to you for using the term senior living. Do you know what I do when I'm not hosting the Grandma Has ADHD podcast?
I believe that you are a person who helps people make that transition and downsize.
Yes. So I didn't know if you knew that. And I don't know if you are aware, our listeners, I want them to know about NASM, which is the National Association of Senior Move Managers. Only we're not just for seniors, we added the word and specialty. So
Okay.
people who are facing these challenges can actually hire people like My company is in San Diego at Silver Linings Transitions, but they can go to nasmm.org and find people who can help with that transition. So I didn't like lead you there, but because it came up, I'm like, I have
Yeah.
to, of course, put in a plug. Okay, I want to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about some of the strategies that you put in place with senior clients. And then I always like to ask my guests about the button, the magic button. If you could press a button and your ADHD would go away forever and you would never have had it, would you press the button? So I'm going to leave you with that thought. We're going to take a quick pause. I'm going to take a sip of water and we're going to come right back with Christine Kotik. Are you tired of feeling like you can't get it together? Struggling with clutter that overwhelms you despite your best efforts? Wondering why organization feels impossible while others make it look so easy? You're not alone, and it's not your fault. Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro, host of the Grandma Has ADHD podcast, and I understand exactly what you're going through. I combine my years of hands-on work as founder of Silver Linings Transitions, a move management and home organizing company, together with ADHD coach training, and help adults 50 and over connect the dots between ADHD and lifelong struggles. Whether you're downsizing, decluttering, or simply trying to create systems that work for your ADHD brain, I provide virtual and in-person coaching for those in the San Diego area. Together, we'll develop practical strategies that honor how your brain actually works, not how you think it should work. Ready to trade shame for understanding? Visit grandmahasadhd.com or call to schedule a discovery session at 760-607-7377, because it's never too late to finally make sense of your story. Ever wondered why helping a loved one declutter feels like speaking different languages? I did, especially with my mom. It wasn't until I founded Silver Linings Transitions, helping San Diego seniors organize and move for over a decade, that I discovered why. We all experience clutter differently, and for those of us with ADHD, it's a whole other world. If you are listening in the San Diego area and feeling stuck with moving, paperwork, photos, or home organization, our team at Silver Linings Transitions gets it. We understand ADHD's unique challenges, and we won't just help you get organized. We'll create sustainable systems that finally stick. Schedule a consultation with our team today at 760-522-1624. That's 760-522-1624, or find us at silverliningstransitions.com. Okay, we are back with Christine Kotik, and I left her with, how do you advise your senior clients? What strategies and supports do you have them put in place to make life easier?
Yeah. So sometimes one of the biggest things we do is just talk about acceptance and positive self-talk, because so many times people are frustrated with themselves. And I read something just this morning about the 5-to-1 rule, and how, like, for every one negative thing, we need to have 5 positive things in order to maintain mental health. So,
Mhm.
like, my clients, I feel like almost consistently are reversed, right? They're maybe saying one thing that's gone well and 5 things that are miserable. So it's helping reframe those thoughts. And another strategy that I think is huge is helping people, like, with some all or nothing thinking, right? So a lot of times people are like, oh, I've got to get this. My granddaughter's coming for the weekend. I have to get this room ready for her. And it might be Monday. And on Monday, they want to finish the whole project because otherwise it just feels not right. So we might talk about, how can you plan that out over the week, so when she arrives on Friday, it's ready, but you've been able to, like, take little steps. Maybe you work on it half an hour twice a day to get
Mhm.
that done, instead of going in. I think our ADHD brains just in general want to, like, start it and work on it till it's done. And that's really not helpful oftentimes because one, we get tired of it, we get frustrated, we get make more of a mess than we started with, and now it's hard. So encouraging people to like take those little bite-sized pieces of things as they're working on stuff. And I
Mhm.
think the other big thing, and it goes to kind of what you said, but like setting up some kind of a structure for yourself. So
Mhm.
getting up at the same time, eating your breakfast, doing the things like, what do you want to do with your days, right? Now that you have the chance to do anything that you want because you don't have to go to work, you don't have to manage your children. What do you want to do? And so sometimes just asking that question, people are like, I never really thought about that before. And so when that happens, then how do we build that in? Spend some time getting back to your art that you love to work on. Spend some time knitting. Spend some time extra going to a farmer's market. Sometimes people find that it's super helpful to search out volunteer activities because that gives them something outside to look forward to in that. So it's keeping connections and kind of building in that structure that kind of helps you feel like you have a plan when you get up in the morning. So you have
Yeah,
benchmarks to hit.
I
Yeah.
agree. I would just add one more thing, and I've heard not to use the word exercise because a lot of people don't like that word, but like to plan to move your body. And I know
Yeah.
for me, my mental health is so much better when I have done something to move my body first thing in the morning. And my kids actually, again, before I knew I had ADHD, would say, Mom, did you
Yeah.
go to yoga today? Because they could tell when I was off. They could tell
Yeah.
when I had exercised.
Yep.
Moved my
Yep.
body.
Body movement is super, super huge. And I'm also a national board certified health and wellness coach, which was additional coaching training and work. But that's one of my big things is that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to go out and run marathons. You don't have to, but what can you do to move your body so that you're
Mhm.
getting that exercise so that you can keep active? And yes, the exercise to use that word, but the
Yeah.
moving your body, increasing your heart rate, getting a little sweaty, those are all things that have benefits for ADHD brains as
Mhm.
much as ADHD medication does. So when
Sure.
you do that and you notice that calmness, that ability to focus a little bit, that ability to be motivated to do things throughout the day, it's a great way to start your day.
Right. I do want to throw one more thing at you. You mentioned the whole perfectionist thing. And one of the terms I learned in my ADHD coaching was perfect poisons progress.
Yeah, I
It's,
love that.
yeah, it's really good. So, I mean, if we think something has to get done perfectly, we will not do it. And sometimes, like I say, just 10 minutes a day. I mean, sometimes for me, just I make myself, because sometimes I don't like to go to the gym either. You just have to do 4 machines. Like, okay,
Yeah,
I can do 4 machines, right?
right.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Doing something for just 5 minutes. I hate paying bills, right? Oh, I hate sitting down. Okay, just sit down and do it for 5 minutes.
do
And
you know what?
usually you get
Sorry.
going and you might do more, but if you're done, you're done. And that's 5 more minutes than if you had ignored it, kind of
And
a thing. So
so
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry I keep
love that.
interrupting. I have
And I
ADHD, in case you didn't know.
yeah.
But I wanted to share one of the things that I learned in my coaching was I used to tell people to kind of eat the frog and get that hard thing out of the way. But I've
Mhm,
learned that with ADHD, sometimes we actually need to do the fun thing or the easy thing to get our dopamine going and
mhm.
then do the hard thing. So that's a whole new way of
Yeah,
thinking.
it is that, and people, right? There's the whole book, Eat the Frog and do the hard thing so it's out of the way. But if that's your barrier, if doing that hard thing is way too much, that's not a good plan for you. And that's one of my big things with coaching is helping people find what works for them, not what the gurus and all the right words tell
Absolutely.
you to do. So I love that. Yeah, it doesn't have to be what everybody else does, it's what works for you. And I think that's super important to remember that it's your life and you get to choose. You get to choose what success looks like. You get to choose how you get there. So, yeah.
And I also say, who is they? They say, who is
Yeah.
they?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Exactly. Because
Okay.
they say a lot.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
They do. They really
um,
do.
So, why do you think it's important that seniors have access to ADHD informed support, especially if
Um,
they've lived their whole life cobbling it together, right? Undiagnosed and
Yeah, I just feel like for people to have that relief, to have that validation, like Sometimes people say, I feel like I'm crazy. Like, why can't I do this? This is like, I should be, right? I should be
Mhm.
able to do this. And so when you have that support and you have someone that tells you, no, like this is your brain wiring. It's okay to be like this. It's not just you. Other people experience these same kind of things. I think that is super important for people to understand. It shifts that narrative that we tell ourselves, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, why can't I do this? I must be lazy. I'm so forgetful. Well, no, you have a brain that works differently. And so your brain needs a different plan. And that can be so helpful. It improves your quality of life, I think, as a senior. It gives you better self management. It can help improve your relationships. One of my first adult clients, because I thought I was going to coach kids because I was a
Mhm.
teacher and I had 4 kids. I'm an expert at kids. I'm going to coach kids. But one of my first adult clients was one of my student clients' grandparents. And she said to me, I have lived my whole life never being on time with birthday cards and birthday gifts and all of that. And she said, I forget if she was 72 at the time. She said, that's embarrassing. I've been embarrassed my whole life. I want to be able to do this for my family. And we talked about that her family probably was happy with whatever and whenever it came. But for her, that was like super important. And so that's what we worked on. And so that to her made her feel more comfortable about herself and made her able to enjoy those birthdays even more. So it improves your relationships, gives you increased confidence when you know that, okay, I'm not just flunking at retirement. Like, this is okay. It's a new phase for me. And I might have to ease into being retired. Maybe I can't go from working 65 hours a week to working 0 hours a week. Maybe there's a different plan that might be better for me. So I think that's a big part. And one of the things that you said, ADHD impacts health and it also impacts finances. And that's one of the talks that I give a lot is about ADHD and money and finances. So if that impulsivity continues as people age and their income becomes fixed and their expenses for health insurance and health costs go up and there's impulsive spending, that's rough. So having an understanding of how your ADHD works and how your brain works around money and all of that is important. So all of those things I think can really benefit everybody, but it can also benefit older adults with ADHD.
Sure. That was a great answer. Okay. So here's the big question. Well,
Yes.
I think it's the big question. The button. You could press the button and not have had ADHD, never had it. Would you press the button?
I would not press the button. And I don't think I even had to think about that. There's all the talk about whether ADHD is a superpower. And I'm not a big fan of that analogy, but
Mhm.
I like to say ADHD is my secret weapon, right?
Mm,
And so,
okay.
as a secret weapon, I can deploy it to wreak havoc. But it can also be the thing that like propels me to places I've never been. Without ADHD, I don't think I would have left a very secure teaching job that I enjoyed and loved and started a business. And this is the best choice I could ever have made. So there's those pieces of it. I like my quirkiness. I like my offbeat sense of humor that most of the time people like it too. And I think that's a benefit. And I feel like that's one of my pieces of my ADHD me. Sure, at times I would like to change some of my
Mhm.
other impulsivities and my things,
That
but
wasn't the question. Could you trade
I
some in?
know.
We all would
Yeah,
trade in, right? I
right.
don't think
Perfect.
anyone
Yes.
wouldn't
Awesome.
ditch.
Thank you for redirecting me. So yes, I
Well,
I think it makes me the amazing person that I am and I wouldn't change it at all.
love it. I have to share, my mom said that when I was a kid, and it's true, like people, I was either for them or was not for them. And it was a very quick and easy decision. So if somebody
Yeah,
was my friend, they were my friend. Like we were
yeah,
friends.
yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So, and otherwise there was no relationship. And I hate the term too much. I hate it. But now I'm sort of living into my too muchness, right? So yes, this
Yes.
is who I am. Take me or leave me. That's also the gift that comes
Yeah.
with age for anyone, whether you're neurotypical or diverse. And then my final question for you, well, first of all, I want people to be able to get in touch with you who want to work with you. So that's number one. And then the other thing is anything that we didn't touch on that if we hang up this call, you're going to be like, I should have said it.
Whether I should have said it or not, I feel like, right, that's my brain is already spinning ahead a million miles. So I always feel like there's something I will hang up and think, oh, why didn't we talk about that? But I think we talked about some really good things. And we talked about some things that I never even thought about, the food container thing and all that. So I think that it's important for people, I guess, if you are someone with ADHD and you are looking for help and support, to make sure that you talk with someone that they get you, that they understand you, that they hear you, they listen to you, and that there's not judgment there. Because at any age, but especially as we're aging, like we don't need fixed. We just need some redirection. We need some support and some different ways of doing things, but we don't need fixed. So don't let anyone try to fix you because you're not broken. So
Okay.
that's that piece.
So, Christine, how can people find you if they're like, oh, I love her, I want to work with her?
Sure. So you can find me. My company name is CK, my initials, Christine Kotik, ADHD Coach. So you can go to ckadhdcoach.com and you'll get to my website. You can email me at Christine, spelled with a CH, at ckadhdcoach.com. And you can search me up. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I don't really do so much of the other social media things, but I feel like that's probably pretty typical for people that are age and older. So
I say that you should pick one lane and then dominate that lane rather than putting yourself everywhere. So
I agree with that. So LinkedIn is probably where I'm at most often right now with my ADHD work. So
sure. Well, because entrepreneurs, we can't go on that tangent, but
yes.
Anyway, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to be with me. And I want to thank those of you who listened for listening. If you liked what you heard, please share this. More people need to hear it so that we can destigmatize ADHD and really open up the possibility of help for those of us who've lived our whole lives not knowing why we were different and getting a better understanding. So you can, again, Grandma Has ADHD, like and subscribe to the podcast and find us on our Facebook group, Grandma Has ADHD. Thank you so much. I hope that you really will take the wisdom that you heard today and help you make the rest of your life the best of your life. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jami.
The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.